Hey Edward,
Go ahead.
why does Santa have such a big sack?
Wait, why does he have a big sack?
Because it only comes once a year.
Dude, that's also like the oldest joke. I feel like I've heard that one 1,000 times.
Well, whatever, folks. We're back. We are
Ah,
back in business. Film Tangents podcast. Um, back to brighten your lives on this
that's right.
Thursday, May 18th.
That's right.
Yeah,
Hey,
this
you're giving
is.
away. You're giving away this stuff, Jake.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm giving away. When
Now,
we're recording this and
now,
everything. Now everyone's gonna know we're slackers and we don't upload until like 4 days
um,
later.
yeah, right. No, now I have to clarify. I have to clarify. It's just that in the zone that we're in, we're recording in recording very near Japan,
Yeah,
one of those like offshoot islands,
yeah.
and it just happens that we're just a little bit ahead. We're just a little bit ahead. When it's Monday for everybody else, it's Thursday for us.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We just happen to be at a McDonald's in Japan.
Yeah. What he said. Supersize me. Well, Edward.
we, we we did meet that guy, didn't we? We met that guy.
I don't. Um. Did he? Did he come to our school to present? I don't know. It wasn't Morgan. What's his name? What's the guy's name? Morgan.
Morgan Freeman.
No, not Morgan Freeman. Morgan. Wait. Hang on. Super size me. People are like, why are
We
these
had like
guys
a
talking
Zoom.
about this
We had like a Zoom
again?
call with him.
Oh,
Yeah, no, we had a
Morgan
Zoom call with that guy.
Spurlock. Morgan Spurlock.
Yeah,
Was it with Morgan Spurlock?
yeah, we had a Zoom call with him.
Really? I don't remember that.
Yeah,
That's crazy, man. Was that what
we
year of
did.
college was that for us?
First year.
First, yeah, that's what I thought. Damn. I don't
Mm.
remember that, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
UNCSA
we had a call with that guy.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, film school gave us a lot of access, man. We met some famous people, man. Had a little
We had to
Q&A
make.
with Danny McBride.
Yeah, yeah, we got to make a lot of one interactions with folks that probably at this point in their lives don't remember that ever happened.
No, definitely not.
If
Uh,
you ask one of those guys, like, hey, do you remember being at this place this year? They'll probably think you're like asking them about like a crime they might have committed. Be like, no, 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 I don't recall.
yeah.
I don't remember being at no school campus. That's false. I
Yeah.
have pictures of myself during that date in my phone that I can show you where I was just at home with my kids,
Yeah. Yeah,
nowhere near any school institution.
You're like, talk to my lawyer. we, uh,
Yeah,
we
it's like, no, sir.
we met David Gordon Green too, didn't we? Wasn't he there too when Halloween came
I
out?
believe so. Yeah,
Yeah, him
yeah, I
and
believe
Danny
so. I
McBride.
believe so. Yeah, and I think Jeff Nichols came there too for
Oh yeah,
when Loving came out.
oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Jeff
Yeah,
Nichols.
a handful of alumni come around.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Jeff
Yeah,
Nichols, man. I mean, his movie Mud. That's like one of my favorite movies, probably. It's like definitely in
yeah.
my. I mean, it's one of my 10 out of 10s. So anything that's a 10 out of 10, I consider like one of my favorites. I suppose. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a good one. Um,
Well, every movie is your favorite then, Jake. Because the last time that I went to a letterbox, you had to give it like 20 movies a 10 out of 10.
yeah, out of
Or
like
not 20
the
movies. You had to give it. No, not 20 movies. I misspoke. I'm sorry. You had to give it 200 movies 10 out of 10
yeah
out of 250 movies that you've seen.
that I've seen in my life,
Yeah.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. If only, Edward. If only that were
What if
the
that was the
case.
case? What if that was the case, dude? That would be hilarious.
That'd be awesome because then I'd still
Yeah.
have so much to see. I do have so
Yeah.
much to see. I mean, like both of us have these giant watch lists. So they'll
Mm,
continue growing forever. Hopefully, I spoke about that a
yeah.
couple weeks ago, where like I have a huge fear that my watch list is gonna like run dry one day, which I know won't happen. But
No, it's not. That's not gonna
there's
happen.
no
Yeah.
way. There's no way.
No.
Just keep having a life, and it won't. It won't happen.
Yeah, it won't. No, and at some point, life's gonna catch up to you to such an extent where it's just gonna keep growing, and you're not gonna have enough time to watch those movies.
Yeah, hopefully.
Unless you're Dale Pollock and you've seen 10,000 movies. That's out to Dale.
What a legend. Well, we can't all be
Men's
so lucky.
culture.
Yeah, we can't all be so lucky to
Yeah.
be, well, not lucky. You know, the man worked hard for it, but to be in the academy,
Yeah.
you know, be
Yeah.
a professional film
Yeah.
critic, have people asking you
Yeah,
about movies on the
but-
news. There's a video on Reddit that I saw in it's in r/public freakout, and it's of a naked guy running around town fighting everybody. He's like naked. It like starts in the gym,
Really?
and then he we gotta link it in the description. We got to see about doing video on this podcast because I would love to. Well, we can't even play that on YouTube anyway, I guess. But there's a
Yeah, because also then we might deal with like copyright shit depending on what kind of video it is.
Yeah, there is let me see if I can find it here. Oh yeah, guy at gym. The post is called "Guy at Gym Starts to Go Off, Gets Arrested After Fighting Everybody." Dude, it's this hilarious video where he's like, let me turn off the sound. I'll just send it to you in general. You could take a quick peek at it. But it's like a guy in a gym. He starts in a gym. I guess he like walks out of the locker room in a towel, and then he takes his towel off. And he just starts fighting random people in the gym. And he's like walking around naked. It's unbelievable, dude. It's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. And people are getting pissed. They're like fighting him, pushing him around, and he's just like getting free. And then he goes outside. He starts like messing with a homeless guy. And like this poor homeless guy's in a wheelchair, and he's like messing with this guy in a wheelchair naked. Absolutely ridiculous.
Gym starts to go off. Gets arrested after fighting everybody.
and then the cops show up and detain him. Absolutely ridiculous. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I have to. I'm gonna link it in the description so people can. If you're listening, go look in the description. It'll be in there. The police even. There's a part where the police even taser him, and he like doesn't flinch. And I don't know if they missed.
What's going on,
dude? Like
he's just fighting. He's got pretty good form too.
Yeah, right.
This guy he has to be on drugs.
Oh yeah. The funniest part, it's like at you see it at like 30 at the 30-second mark.
He's like fighting random people.
This is like an Eric Andre skit on drugs, like on meth.
This is like an Eric Andre skit. Yeah, he's like bothering a guy in a wheelchair.
Dude, the 30-second mark, the guy in the white shirt, he starts fighting him, and the guy just like runs.
Yeah.
Dude, that was not fucking cool, messing with a guy in a wheelchair, and the people knew that because a guy walks up behind him and slams a book bag into his back, and then random pedestrians just start coming up to him and tackling him and taking him down.
Gets tased twice and doesn't even flinch.
Yeah, how did he not flinch after getting tased?
Man, this guy was on something. That guy was like out of it.
Yeah. Maybe he was
There's no way that guy wasn't just out of it.
my favorite part, one of my favorite parts, like my favorite part's the whole video, but one of my favorite parts is when he's like running around the cars, like he's like weaving in and out of traffic as the cops chase him. But yeah, that's one of the funniest fucking things I've seen this week.
That's pretty ridiculous, dude.
Oh,
that's
God.
pretty ridiculous. Like, if I've seen a pretty ridiculous thing, that's a pretty ridiculous thing.
Oh, God.
That's bananas.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on here. I
Something
have.
that I wanted to ask you.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. I was just about to
I wanted
pull
to
topics out of my ass.
something that I wanted to to have us talk about was old YouTubers that we used to watch, specifically old like film YouTubers that you and I might have seen when we were younger.
Hmm, it's a good
Who comes to
question.
mind? Like when I ask you a question like that, who comes to mind? Because there's like two folks that come to mind when I think about that.
Okay, who are your two?
Somebody that I was thinking about, and like I also thought about him, like when I said to you, like you've seen 200 movies, the 250 movies, and 200 of them are like 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought about Jimmy Jans because, like, to me, Jimmy Jans was like the guy that I actually like. I was subscribed to him for a long time, but I
Uh huh.
never listened to his opinions because, like, most of the movies that he would review, they would be like awesome tacular or whatever, and I'd be like, dude, everything cannot be an awesome tacular movie. I would always like have that impression from him.
Jimmy Jans,
So
you
like
said his name was?
do you remember him? Like it's like Jeremy Jans. Isn't that his name?
Oh, maybe. Wait, let me see. Do I know this guy?
He was like a big YouTuber. That's what he used to do. He would like rate movies. That's like, like it would be like no like it was like a good time, no alcohol required or
Oh,
something like
this
that.
guy. He used to go by a different name, didn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah. What was his name
What does he call
before?
himself now?
No, he goes by Jeremy Jans now. Has it always been Jeremy Jans? I could have sworn this guy went
I'm
by
pretty
something
sure.
different.
Maybe. But as long as I knew him, it was Jeremy Jans.
Huh. Yeah, no, I know this guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you said he would like overrate everything?
Dude, oh excuse me. I don't know what he does now, but I know that like when I was like big on like film YouTube, and I was like I think I might have been subscribed to like maybe like 20 different like just film YouTubers. There's a bunch of them. And I remember that he was like the number one guy that I would be like, I can't trust this guy's opinion. Because like every time that a movie would come out, it'd be like, oh, the Avengers, the Deadpool movie, like any one of those movies,
Yeah.
it would always be like, oh, this is an awesome-tacular movie. And awesome-tacular in his channel was like the equivalent of like a 10 out of 10. Now I was like, dude, get it the fuck out of here. Most things would be like that. And it was the same thing with like Collider, because I also was subscribed to like Collider. And Collider used to be just called like AMC Theaters.
Yeah.
And AMC Theaters, like their YouTube channel was just like John Campia and like a bunch of other guys reviewing movies.
Oh yeah.
And as you know, like Red Letter Media then like spoofed them and like made fun of them.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing, dude. It was the exact same thing with those guys. Those guys would watch any movie, and it would be like, oh, they would actually criticize the movie, that was like the funny part of it. They would actually be like, oh, I didn't like this about the movie, and I didn't like that about the movie. But then when they would all like unite, at the end of it, when they would all unite. And John Campbell would be like, so what do you rate the movie? Everybody, including John Campbell, would be like, oh, it's 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, And I was like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Like, I had a real evolution. Like, did you have an experience like that? Because for me, then I evolved from that into like Red Letter Media and into like YMS, and like into this other, like a little bit more sophisticated, like,
Yeah.
more like opinionated guys. But
Yeah.
I started just like listening and like watching a bunch of just like bozos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean I watched a little bit of I watched John Campio when I was younger. Even at that age I was like this guy's kind of a tool, kind of a tool. But he's because he always came across as like really overly opinionated in like a really annoying way to me. But he would, yeah, you're right. He would, well, and I know there was like something about it where, it was almost like I think when Revenge of the Sith like first came out, he was talking about it like, wow, it was amazing, and Obi-Wan
Yeah.
versus Anakin, a battle between two friends, da da da, and then.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
years later, he's like, "Oh my god, the Star Wars prequels. Don't even get me started on the prequels. Revenge of the Sith is terrible and da da da." And it was
Yeah.
like, what the hell, man? You're like changing your
And then
tune. Like,
you're clearly there's clearly like bandwagoning.
yeah. And it's like,
Mm.
can you change your mind about a movie? Absolutely. But usually if you do, you would say something like, well, I used to actually really like this movie, but now I think it's dumb, which I don't know. It's like, whatever.
Mm.
The guy can do whatever he wants. But to answer your
Mhm.
question, yeah, I watched a little bit of John Campea when I was younger. When I discovered Red Letter Media and Mr. Plinkett, that was like,
Mhm.
dude, that was life changing. Like I thought Mr. Plinkett was the funniest shit ever. His Revenge of the Sith review, that's one of the that's one of the that's one of the goats, man. That is one of the
Yeah.
greatest film reviews of all time. He like it's honestly like I feel as though any writing class should show that review as like a sort of a screenwriting 101 kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because I mean, he just he points out like all the kind of flaws and like why it doesn't work and why this is boring and how it could have been better in this scene. And I mean, he just goes on, dude. He rips that movie a new one, man. He goes on
Yeah.
forever, and he goes like really hard on Revenge of the Sith for sure, to the point where like I don't, like I look back, I don't think Revenge of the Sith was quite as bad as he painted it out to be. As he made it out to be in his reviews. But yeah, Mr. Plinkett would be a big one for me. Um,
Yeah.
I liked, I guess, like Chris Stuckman too.
Yeah, Chris Stuckman. And the Chris Stuckman like evolved because I remember that Chris Stuckman had a little bit of that Jeremy Jans thing at the beginning, but
Yeah,
he always stood out as being like a little bit more sophisticated because he had that like grading system of like A, B, C or whatever,
yeah,
and he would give like an A plus to like the 10 out of 10 movies. And he like grew in sophistication because I appreciate his stuff because of him I learned about movies that I wouldn't have learned about either like otherwise.
hmm,
Like I think I learned about the movie Prisoners because of him. I
yeah,
think that's how I got introduced to that movie. Because he made a review. Because he like grew. Like I kept getting a little bit more sophisticated and watching a little bit more like foreign movies and like like these cult movies, critically acclaimed movies that were in the festival circuit, but were not like big. Um, and I think the last thing that guy, I don't like, I haven't like gone on his YouTube channel. I think I might still, I'm still subscribed to that guy. But I think he was like making a movie and he was like crowdfunded.
really,
Yeah, I think the last thing that I learned about that guy was that he was making his own like movie. I respect that guy. I actually thought that guy was pretty good.
yeah. I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I have another one that I got to bring up when we're done with Chris Stuckman. But about Chris Stuckman, I remember he had a couple really good videos. The he had two. Why? Oh no, the problem with horror movies today, or something like that. And then he had a follow up called the problem with action movies today. And
Mm.
I
I think
really,
I watched both of those.
yeah, I've watched both of those. I kept when I was younger. I think I was like a teenager when the horror movie one came out, when he uploaded that one, and that one actually helped me
Mm.
quite a bit because he was talking about just kind of the overuse of jump scares. That was like the main kind of that was like the main takeaway from the video. Just this overuse of jump scares and this cheap jump
Mm.
scares and fake jump scares, things like that. The video
Mm.
harped a lot on jump scares, but there were other points as well. I think he probably touched on the use of CGI in horror movies, showing
Mm.
monsters too much versus keeping them in the shadows. Um,
Mm.
and that video helped me quite a bit when I was a teenager because when I was a teenager I was writing my first screenplay, which was a horror
Mm.
screenplay. Actually won an award for it, and
I think those videos actually have like an impact because I feel like
yeah, and he
I feel like
helped me
videos like
with that
that.
screenplay just from
Yeah,
watching that video.
yeah.
I guess Chris Stuckman
That's
one sort of
I,
can claim a little bit of credit for that award that I won.
well, dude, because that's the interesting thing. Because I feel like at some point, people thought like, oh, you make like these YouTube videos and like, and I don't know. I think that's one of the things that happens sometimes when you like make content like this, where you just feel like sometimes things just kind of go in a vacuum. Like, oh, I made that video and people watched it, whatever. But I think stuff like that had like real, like, you know, trickling effects, like into like filmmaking, like today. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of filmmakers are watching. A lot of young guys like us were just watching guys like those on YouTube, like criticizing movies, being like, oh, movies suck when they have scares and shit like that. It's fascinating, you know, because I do feel like those videos that we watched when we were younger, you know, every form of painting was another one that we watched a lot, and I never stopped
Oh
watching
yeah.
that guy just quit. Yeah,
Oh
the guy just
really?
quit. The guy just quit YouTube. Yeah, Tony Zhou. Yeah, he just
Huh.
quit YouTube. I think he made his last video like 10 years ago or something.
Really?
Um,
I remember that one.
yeah, yeah, that guy was great.
Yeah, he
But
had some really interesting
yeah,
ones.
man. Yeah, I think all those guys have like had like an effect on like shaping like film. I feel like if you ask like current filmmakers, like, "Hey, were you watching these guys on YouTube?" They'll probably be like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, I love Chris Tucker," and then they would say the same thing, like, "I watched that horror video about with him, like you know, where he was shitting on jump scares."
Yeah. Because Chris
Yeah.
Stuckman made a really good point about jump scares, because that's the thing. And I would even go maybe a step further than where he went with jump scares, where I think the whole overuse of jump scares has caused a lot of American audiences, a big portion of American audiences, to judge how scary a movie was using perhaps a flawed metric. That being how many
Mhm,
times they jolted because a loud noise happened, you know?
mhm,
Because a lot of times if you watch a horror movie that doesn't have a lot of jump scares, if any, but
mhm,
it's but is well made and scary, I think a lot of times if people are I've had experiences where I'll watch it with people, a movie like that, with people who are conditioned to be looking and waiting for jump scares. And then they come out of it and they're like, that movie wasn't that scary. And it's because the whole movie, instead of sort of focusing on kind of what was creepy about it or what was maybe, what just gave them the shivers, what's actually scary, because what's actually
mhm,
scary about, um, a horror film are the ideas that are presented in it. A lot of times too, it's like what you don't see. Like we always talk about that scene in
mhm,
Insidious. Like for me, the creepiest scene in Insidious is a scene that has no jump scares, which is the scene where the mom is outside throwing out the trash and she looks back inside
mhm.
and through the window she sees a little boy ghost dancing in the kitchen.
Through the
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's the to be fair, I think that sequence does build to like a semi jump scare, if I remember correctly, because she goes basically like looking around for the little boy because she thinks it's her son at first, woken up from the coma. And then the
Mhm.
little boy ghost kind of like bursts out of an
He jumps out.
armoire. Yeah, he
Yeah.
bursts out of like a wardrobe or something. But even that moment, I remember there wasn't like a jump scare like music. There wasn't like a boom, or there was just the sound of the wardrobe bursting open. What maybe made you jump a little bit. Um, but
Mhm.
even that part, what was scary about it was the fact that the little boy ghost was like right there for a second and then like runs off giggling, and I was like, fuck, that's so scary. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so I think that, yeah, if you're conditioned to just be looking for those jump scares and just waiting on those, you might miss out um, on what's actually scary in a horror film. Um,
Mhm.
unless it's like a movie like Sinister, where despite the jump scares, people are shitting their pants the whole time, pretty much,
Yeah.
because it's so damn
Yeah.
scary. But
Yeah.
credit where it's due. Um,
A movie that I can't wait to see is that like Bo is scared me, that Joaquin movie.
oh yeah, Beau is Afraid.
Bo is afraid. Yeah, Bo is scared. Bo is afraid. Yeah, because I've heard like a lot of positive things about it. Mixed things, but mostly just like really positive. Like every like rating that I see for it is like really like positive.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard mixed things. I know a lot of people have liked it. I'm in like horror
Mm.
groups on Facebook, and a lot of times those, I don't know, I find myself just not really relating to a lot of people on kind of what horror is, or what,
Mm.
or rather why horror. I guess we love horror for different reasons. Maybe there's some overlap, obviously.
Mm.
Like, yeah, there's some. Uh, I don't know. I think there's like a huge chunk of the horror of like the horror fan base globally that just kind of likes like Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers because they're cool and they like the gore and stuff and they like the macabre, stuff. And I like that stuff too. But I also like really critically examining horror. That's why one of my favorite horror films is the original Hellraiser, and that's why I
Mm.
liked the newer Hellraiser as well quite a bit because in both of those movies, actually particularly Hellraiser 2 and then the new Hellraiser from 2022,
Mm.
Pinhead, the character Pinhead was always just kind of very intriguing to me.
Mm.
There was, because behind all the evil and brutality, there's just sort of like a sadness there that I thought was interesting, but they didn't quite fully explore it. But I was glad they didn't fully explore it. It's sort of like the Joker and the Dark Knight, where there's some pain behind this monster mask, but you
Mm.
never really find out what it is, and that's
Right.
actually kind of nice. You don't need to dig into the backstory of everybody. But I guess what I'm trying to say, kind of going off on a tangent here, but what I'm trying to say is, yeah, he said it, tangents.
Yeah, the
Um,
podcast is already. We're done.
yeah, it's over. What I'm trying to say is, I definitely look at horror very. I like all the surface level stuff. I like the spookiness and I like some, you know, Evil Dead kind of carnage horror, the gore and all that stuff. That stuff's fun. And I like, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, Leatherface. Like that's all they're fun characters and stuff, but I'm interested also in like kind of what's under the surface as well, like what's really under the surface, what's going on in horror, like why is this making me afraid? Why is this scaring me? What are the implications here? So with that being said, I kind of take it with a grain of salt when I see that a lot of people in these horror fan groups are like shitting on Beau is Afraid, because I'm like, you know, they might not, they might just not be, you know, looking hard enough.
They might not be real horror fans.
Well, they could
They
be
might just
those.
like slashers.
Yeah, right. Well, they could just be, the people who, some of them might be those people who are just conditioned to look for the jump scares too. I'm not trying to rip on anybody. I'm just kind of talking about maybe differences in how, I view horror, or film in general. But
Mm.
yeah, so I'm interested in that because I know, and I mean, I'm in a big like Godzilla fan club on Facebook, and a lot of people in this group love like Shin Godzilla, but a lot of people shit on it. A lot of people in the
Mm.
Godzilla fan groups shit
Really?
on Shin
Huh.
Godzilla. Yeah,
Yeah. That's
because
interesting. I mean, okay.
yeah, no, it's weird, but I don't know, man. I think some. I don't know. I don't know how to say it without sounding kind of smug or anything, but like,
Mhm.
not every person is going to like every movie. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. But one
Yeah.
other YouTuber that I was gonna bring up was the Angry
Yeah.
Video Game Nerd. Do you remember that guy?
I remember that guy, but I never got into him. I never really like got
Oh
in
man,
there all the way.
I loved his stuff, man. He had his movie channel was Cinemassacre. So good,
Mm.
man. He still has it going on. Like he does every October. He has Cinemassacre's Monster Madness, where he reviews horror films all October. Like he had one year he did a Godzilla-thon too. He reviewed every Godzilla movie through the month of October. He had like one year he did a history of horror where he went through all the big like major horror milestones through the 20th century. But yeah, he was great. He was great, man. I really liked his stuff.
Yeah.
And he seems to really he really seems to enjoy sort of the nostalgia of it all, of horror and monster stuff, and he seems to really like October and Halloween, which I can really relate to. I love all that stuff. But he was a good one, man. I enjoyed his stuff quite a bit.
Yeah. No, dude, like all that I can remember being subscribed to like back then were just like a bunch of like those kind of guys, Like the best guy in terms of like being critical was like Stuckman. But then everything else that I was watching, dude, it was like Jerry Jans, John Campia. I remember another one that it was like the Schmoes No. It was just like these two dudes reviewing movies. And it was the same thing because like those same guys would all unite and do like the AMC theater thing, So like in the AMC like round table would be like John Campia and the Schmo guys and like it was like I was just watching those guys. It's like funny because I was thinking about that today and I was like, I want to ask you about that, just because I was like reflecting, Sometimes I do like randomly just like search to see if these channels are still active. And it was the same with like anime because I would watch like people who would just like review anime episodes and like series and stuff. Like all of those people, I've not seen any of their stuff like in forever. But sometimes I remember them, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should like see if that person's still making videos, and if they're the exact same way they were before,
Yeah.
And if they're successful, because like at the time that I was watching all those videos, like they were like the top dogs, of like. Like Campia and AMC and Stockman and all those guys were like the top guys making like movie stuff. They were the most popular guys anyway. But the tides changed.
Yeah.
For those fellows.
Yeah.
Got made fun of. Or Stockman, because it seems like everybody likes that guy.
Chris Stuckman?
Nice guy. Yeah.
You said everybody likes him or nobody likes him?
No, so everybody likes that guy. He seems like just like a nice guy. Like it's like even the people who run like more like like really like critical like cynical channels like your movie sucks and stuff like that. Even those guys like seemingly like get along with that guy. He like comments on their channels sometimes.
Oh, that's cool. There's a guy. There's actually a guy now who, and I think he's a little newer too. He probably wasn't even around when I was a kid, but Cody Leach. He's a solid movie YouTuber. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's pretty good. The sheer just amount of things that guy has seen. I mean, he has series where he goes like, he has movie series where he goes into like top horror 3-quels or horror 4-quels, 5-quels ranked. And it's like, damn, dude, you've seen a lot of shit. Like this guy's seen a lot of stuff, man. But yeah, Cody Leach, he's pretty solid. I like him. All right, folks, moving on here. So we went into it, part 1 of the Forgotten Employee story, also known as the American Dream. I think it's called The American Dream by the Forgotten Employee. I read part 1 of that story on the Skinamarink episode from a few weeks ago. So if you go back to that episode, there'll be a timestamp for it. You can hear part 1. And now I'm going to read several more parts. Maybe not finish it this week, but read a few more parts because this shit is hilarious. So a little recap,
It's funny because it's funny because we're going from your story, which people were saying was like untrue, to this story, which seemingly escalates to people also saying like this is false.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I definitely don't believe this story, but I think it's hilarious. I found it believable for like the first half of it, maybe, but then it gets very, it goes off the rails. But to recap, all part 1 really goes over is just the fact that this employee in a corporate environment has become forgotten, where like his position has like gone away, but he's still receiving a paycheck. So he's just in this satellite office doing nothing all day and just just getting away with it. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
this is part 2 of the forgotten employee. All right, here we go. All that I have worked for over the past 5 months of not working nearly came to a horrible death this past Friday. I arrived at the office at 10:30, still dressed in the wrinkled khaki pants from my very lengthy Thursday night at the bar. I sneaked in the side door and made a beeline for my office. On the way, I was stopped by an electrician who informed me that they were working on the air conditioning in the office building and that some sections of the sprawling complex would be without electricity during different parts of the day. He reassured me that if I was indeed in an occupied area of the building, that I would be informed in plenty of time. Of course, since nobody knows I exist, I expected to be left in the darkness at some point during the day. I eased into my office, shut the door, and sat down at my desk. My morning regime consists of checking baseball scores, a quick once-over of SA, that's Something Awful forums, then off to randomly scour the network drive for Excel documents. I will pull up at least 5 spreadsheets, ranging from actual important price sheets to recent company softball scores. It doesn't matter as long as it's an Excel document. I print them out, then walk to the other side of the office building to copy them. Somehow in my mind, this makes it look like I'm working, and looks are the most important thing. On my way to the copy machine, I was stopped by a fellow manager, one who actually works. He reminded me of an 11 o'clock meeting in the conference room, and I played dumb. You had to have gotten the email. It was sent to all the managers, he replied, not knowing that I was the forgotten employee of Company X. I tried to wiggle my way out of it, but I was stuck. Begrudgingly, I made my way into the brightly lit conference room, thinking that it couldn't be that bad. After all, it was Friday, there would probably be Krispy Kreme donuts, and I could easily just sit there and not say a word. I was very, very wrong. Bad sign number 1. Nowhere in the room was the distinct aroma of honey-glazed goodness. Even the coffee pot was ominously switched off. This is a horribly bad sign in the corporate world. Lack of food means that the meeting will be about only business-related issues. Excuse me. Bad sign number 2. The normal large conference table is nowhere to be found. In its place is a U-shaped formation of folding tables. U-shaped formation equals audience participation equals horribly, horribly bad. Bad sign number 3. I reflexively reached over by the door for the inevitable handout and felt nothing. No handout equals note-taking is mandatory. I begin to have a very sinking feeling about this meeting. Bad sign number 4. Standing in front of the stained, dry erase board was the nemesis of all forgotten employees, the Director of People Services, aka Human Resources Nazi. I was a Warsaw Jew face to face with Himmler. She glanced at me as I quickly averted my stare, but I thought that I may have caught a glimmer of recognition in her eyes, and that, my friends, scared the hell out of me. The beer sweat started rolling off my forehead as I ran through my options. I was about 15 feet inside the doorway, and Himmler had seen me. Quick flight was out of the question. I was forced to sit through this meeting and try to keep my cover. Looking at the U-shaped formation of tables, I decided to sit directly in the middle, contending that if any type of let's go around the room shit went on, she would undoubtedly start from one of the ends. I took my company's cell phone off and set it on the table, then proceeded to sit and wait. Unfortunately, the meeting turned into my worst nightmare. Buzzwords started keying off alarms in my head as they flowed from the mouth of the hideous HR gargoyle. Teamwork, employee insight, departmental budgets, etc. The meeting was a quarterly employee idea meeting where managers would gather and share what work their teams had accomplished and what they were looking forward to. Considering my team had been fucking contracted on September 11th and I was currently a free agent with no intention of signing with anybody, I was worried. And then it happened. Let's go around the room and say what the general
Oh boy.
view among your reporting employees is as to the future of Company X. Shit. I knew I was fucked and I needed to get out. My heart skipped a beat as the first ass kisser on the end started babbling away about how great his employees are and started calling them off by name. I needed a fire alarm, a
boy.
stroke, or a meteor strike, and I needed it soon. Before I was forced to open my mouth and out myself as a non-working leech to the rest of the world. My eyes searched the room for something to help me out. The fire alarm was too far away, as was the window. The light switch was directly behind me, but that was only as a last resort. I had almost given up hope when my eyes situated on the table in front of me. My cell phone. I needed a phone call, and I needed it as soon as possible. Telekinesis failed me for a good 2 minutes as it came closer and closer to being my turn. Then I realized something amazing. I was wearing my bar pants. The beauty of my bar pants is that they have amazingly deep pockets, and nestled down past the crumpled up $1 bills, the napkins, the receipts, and the Bud Light bottle caps was my saving grace, my wife's cell phone. And listed under the letter A in her pre-programmed numbers was my work cell phone. A rush of excitement filled me, and my hand started slowly inching towards my pocket. Because of the angle of my leg, I couldn't reach into my pants without drawing unwanted attention, so I had to make a go at it from the outside. It was only 2 clicks, one on the down button in the middle to highlight my number, the other on the send button. But timing was crucial. As it came closer to my time to speak, I felt down the outline of my phone, my fingers skimming the display screen, and pushed down once on the scroll button, then mashed to its left to send the call. I believed victory was mine, but unfortunately the phone on the desk remained silent. 10 seconds passed, 20 seconds, and yet nothing happened. I had obviously highlighted the wrong name to call. It struck me as mildly humorous that somewhere one of my wife's friends was answering a call from her cell phone, blissfully unaware of my epic struggle to free myself from the meeting from hell. As soon as it was obvious that I had dialed the wrong number, I moved my thumb back to the right and punched the end button approximately 10 times, hoping to cancel everything out. The train of talking had reached the person sitting next to me, and the focus of the room was in my general direction. It was like so suspenseful. I probably only had one chance to pull it off, and I had to do it discreetly. With my body turned toward the speaker, my hand creeped down once more. I coughed slightly as a distraction while my fingers made a ninja flick across the scroll and send keys. Then I moved my hands to the table and waited. 5 seconds, 10 seconds went by. The person next to me was finishing up. It was almost my turn. I thought I was completely done for, and then it happened. The cell phone lit up, and the telltale Nokia tone started resonating throughout the room. All eyes shot to me as I tried my hardest to contain my elation. I grabbed the phone and pushed the answer button. "Ben," I said authoritatively. My voice echoed through the speaker as the cell phone in my pocket picked up the background noise.
Oh boy.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Name of a company vice president at the corporate office. I have that information at my desk. Can it wait? Oh, I understand. I then covered up the phone and said to the HR Nazi, "Do you mind?" She was taken aback but smiled and nodded. It was all the break I needed. I sprung out of my chair and headed for the door, pretending like I was talking, nodding absent-mindedly to myself, engaged in a pretend conversation with my pants, but I was temporarily free. I hurried back to my office, closed the door, and waited. The time was 12 noon, and I was sure that soon the HR Nazi would show her face and ask to sit down and chat about what I had missed at the meeting. I browsed the SA forums for the next 4 hours, every set of footsteps by my door sending me on a frenzy of window minimization. 4 o'clock rolled by. Cars began to leave the parking lot. My phone had not rung. My Outlook inbox was still empty. At 5 o'clock, the lights went out in my office. I sat in the complete darkness for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. A half hour went by as I sat in a semi-daze, alone in a dark office. Then it hit me. I was safe. I was forgotten. All was right with the world. I took out my cell phone and played a silent, celebratory game of Snake. Part 3. I had been dreading this.
That's ridiculous, dude.
Dude, this is great. Part 3. I had been dreading this day. In the back of my mind, I knew it was coming. In all my years here, my anniversary date has held as a beacon of hope, the promise of yet another pay raise, yet another shining star on the corporate report card that would one day land me a corner office with a view. This year, however, I wished that it would never come. I was sure that my 9th anniversary at this corporate juggernaut would raise sufficient enough flags to bring the human resources ninjas swinging through my office window, sending the old copies of Baseball Weekly and collected Mountain Dew bottles flying in a maelstrom of broken dreams as they hauled me off to some cubicle to start being a productive member of society. The email was waiting for me as I came in late to work. The return address was a name that I did not recognize, but the all-familiar HR printed in bold at the end of it sent a shiver up my spine. I opened it up, and all at once, a feeling of relief, bewilderment, and hope overcame me. Quote, so this is the email. Moonshine employee number 412. Our records indicate that you are due for an annual performance review on September 10th. Please report to your designated departmental director, none on none, for your review. As you are a non-supervised managerial / other employee, please submit a self-review detailing past accomplishments. Self-reviews must be submitted no later than September 13th to employeereview@companyname.com. Best regards, HR Nazi. I reread the letter twice, trying my hardest to figure out any hidden meanings. The good news was that from the form letter, it seemed as though they had no idea what I did. The bad news was that neither did I. I had 3 days to find out, construct some kind of good response, and send it back in a very unthreatening fashion. I actually needed to do work, and the clock was ticking. So 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in the bar at Applebee's, downing a cold Bud Light and pondering my situation. Solutions including prolonged vacation, botched workplace injury, and phone call to HR to ask what I do were summarily dismissed. And I had hit a dead end. I finished off another beer, and the thought suddenly hit me. Every 2 weeks, without fail, I had received a paycheck at my house. Although I had rarely opened them, I knew there was a section on there that listed a departmental code, a simple 4-digit number that would hold the answer to what my company thought I did. I paid my bill and headed home, determined to wake up in the morning and figure out what I was going to do with myself. Unfortunately, when I got home and opened up an old paycheck, I realized that my department code was listed as 0000, which I feared was a default code. I couldn't have been more wrong. I showed up at 9 o'clock on September 11th, marking my first return to actual working hours in months. My first stop was to the accounting section of the building, where I cornered a temp employee and asked, real managerial-like, what department does code 0000 refer to? She typed a few numbers into her computer and replied with something that blew me away. Workplace safety. I staggered back a bit, but tried to regain my composure quickly. How many employee entries are there in the workplace safety group? She typed 2 more entries and came back with Moonshine here in Detroit and James Alexander in the Fort Worth office. It was obvious she had no idea who I was. I guess Moonshine is a code for himself, which was a bonus. But my heart sank for a minute as I realized there actually was somebody else in this company who was actually doing the non-job that I was somewhat tasked to do. I retreated to my office and tried to plan my next move. Workplace safety, I thought, trying to take in the gist of what was said to me. Was it then my job to make sure that nobody walked around on stilts or ran with scissors while on company property? Not that it was a huge epidemic around here, but I was somewhat freaked, excuse me, but I was somewhat freaked that the next time Lumpy McBumperfuck in shipping and receiving decided to pour lye on his groin, I would be responsible. The only answer was to find James Alexander. I would pretend that I was actually a working safety inspector and try and pry him about what kind of work he did. I was able to track down the number to the Fort Worth office and gave him a call. James Alexander was the reply. Mr. Alexander, this is Moonshine, the Detroit safety inspector. I was wondering if you could help me with a couple items that I've got going on up here. There was a, I love this, there was a pregnant pause. I've never heard that before. There was a pregnant pause, then a quick hold on as I was put on hold. About 20 seconds passed by, then he came back on the line, his voice down at a whisper. Who do you work for? I thought quickly. Greg McDonnell, I lied. I'd never even heard of a Greg McDonnell. And he told you to call me? Alexander asked, sounding somewhat worried. No, sir, I did it of my own volition. Yet another pause, then, are you really a workplace safety employee? I recognized something in his voice and decided to take a shot. I knew I was putting everything on the line, but it felt as though I was at that point regardless of whether or not I admitted my status to this stranger on the phone. I took a deep breath and answered a very confident, no. Are you with HR? Was the stern reply. No. Then what do you do? Nothing. There was yet another pause. There was yet another pause, and a flash of heat cascaded over my skin. There was a barely intelligible snort, almost laughter. Then he replied, me neither.
Oh, wow.
It was like I had asked him if he had stairs in his house, only the answer was 100 times more exciting. It turned out James Alexander of Fort Worth, Texas, was an original workplace safety inspector and had been with the company for 7 years. About 3 years ago, the department was dissolved, and the responsibility for oversight was placed in the hands of our company's quality control department back down in Florida. He was furloughed for a period of 5 months. Then one day he received a letter asking him to return to work. When he returned, he was given temporary quarters in a recently abandoned office and was told that he would be given new assignments shortly. Shortly turned into 2 years. I was amazed. I was amazed that I was not the only one who was forgotten in this corporation. He told me that all he did all day was browse the internet and replace the contents of the first aid kit when they ran low. He had never failed to receive a raise and was never once accosted by any higher-ups. He and I postulated that the computer must have defaulted to a 4 zeros code when none was input for my employee file. Luckily, here 4 zeros wasn't just a code meaning nothing. It was actually still the defunct workplace safety group. He told me to count my blessings and hung up the phone with a sincere good luck. The next day, I showed up at work with a new purpose in life. What I had come across was even better than having no job. I now have a job with no responsibilities. I walked throughout the office, looking at light sockets, chairs, and microwaves, exactly as I supposed that a safety inspector would do. Later that day, I would write my personal review, remembering to keep it vague and short so as not to arouse attention. James had informed me that most reviews would be automatically answered with a standard raise without ever crossing the desk of anybody except an HR secretary, just so long as you don't admit to doing anything extraordinarily good or bad. So I wrote, quote, employee, Moonshine number 412, accomplishments. Maintained a 0 accident rate in the Detroit corporate and shipping offices for the entire 2002 calendar year. So this was a while ago. Responded to every safety issue in a timely fashion. Heightened awareness for safety-related issues among employees. I hit send and waited for the possible downfall the next week. This past Wednesday, I showed up at work with a bottle of, what is this? Unispirit? What is that? Unaspirin? I've never heard of that. From 7-Eleven. and a rubber carpet bumper that I picked up at Home Depot. Back where the employees go out to smoke, the carpet at the door was horribly mangled, and many an unhappy soul was sent crashing to the floor by a misplaced step on the hazard. So the first thing I did was put the bumper down and glued it into place using some bullshit Billy Mays fabric crap glue that the yahoo at Home Depot said worked wonders. It wasn't pretty, but now there was no danger of tripping. I am responding to workplace safety issues, keeping under budget as the $9 came out of my pocket. I placed a sign on the wall next to the bumper, seen below. I placed the what is that? Unaspirin? I don't know. In the break room first aid kit and proceeded to my office. There was a piece of company mail sitting on my desk right next to the OSHA posters that I had ordered. As I assumed that any safety inspector's office needed, decoration included a guide to hazardous material and eye wash station directions. I sat down in my seat, opened the forums, then slowly opened the letter. Quote, Moonshine employee number 412, we are pleased to announce that your annual performance review has been deemed satisfactory. As a result, your pay rate has been increased by 5%, retroactive to September 1st, 2002. Sincerely, HR Nazi. Now a week. I'm going to read this last paragraph and then that'll conclude that part. I think that's probably good for this week. Now a week has passed and nothing else has happened. I was asked to check a battery and a smoke detector by a secretary yesterday, who had unfortunately seen me place the bumper in the back hallway. So yes, I now have to do some work. But until the camel spiders invade accounting and I've got fatalities on my hands, I will continue to sit here, playing Snake on my Nokia and browsing the Something Awful forums. I am Moonshine, the protector of Detroit corporate shipping and receiving, here to make sure nobody falls down on my watch. End part 3.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Wow. No, you're right, though. That it's like, up to this point, I can still see the story as, like, being believable.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? I can still be like, that sounds like things that could have happened. Like I remember at the end of the first part, I was like, that's like stretching it a little bit, And obviously, like the story about him just being in that being was like very, like tight-ropey. But this specific one, it's like, I can see that this is like, I could see all of this being like an actual thing.
Oh yeah.
Somebody just like skating by,
Yeah.
and just like doing the necessary right little things to be like, God, I'm just around, I'm not asking for too much, just a guy in the background,
Yeah.
5% raise is pretty good.
It's not bad at all, dude.
Retroactive, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was so far it's still, because you think about how big these corporations are too. I mean, man, you get just thinking about, my own job. I mean, you have to think about your own manager in like a corporate environment. If you ask them to do something, it's nothing on them either. You have to follow up with them several times because there's so much other shit that they're dealing with. So then you imagine that you're in this guy's situation, you're just a number. Nobody's looking at you. Everybody else has like so much all this other shit on their plate. Nobody's like going through like, what's every single employee doing? Like manually being like, okay, what's everyone doing in this giant corporation of thousands of employees? So it's definitely believable. You'll know when it gets like it gets off the rails. I think in like part 5 or something, where
it clearly just kind of becomes like a little bit too grandiose.
Yeah, it becomes. I mean, it's like a Will Ferrell comedy or something like toward the end. Yeah, where I'm just like, no way. But I don't know, man.
That guy was just hoping like that Hollywood would just like pick up his like idea. It's like, let's make this into a script.
Oh, dude, with some minor adjustments, I could definitely see this becoming a solid like comedy film. This would be great, man. This would be like a great Office Space kind of legacy film, so to speak. But yeah, it is definitely hard to believe. But again, like a lot of times, truth is stranger than fiction.
Well, thank you for reading that, dude. That was great. That's awesome.
Oh man, it's a fun story, dude. Whether it's true or not.
That was yeah, no, that was great. Like whether that's true or not, it's like so engaging. You know, when you like told me about it, and you told me like how like um engaging it was because we were like, oh, this is one of the best like internet stories I've ever like heard. I was like, oh shit, you know, like we have to fucking listen to this. Um, it's been great. It's
Oh
been great
yeah.
listening to it.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. That was gold finding that. I don't even remember how I found that,
Yeah.
but
Are you
yeah.
part of that like Reddit page?
Well, it was on the Something Awful forums originally, so I don't think it's not actually a Reddit thing. But I think I may have found it
What is
through Reddit,
that?
like someone linked it. Something
Okay.
Awful
So that's like a
forum.
forum. Something
Yeah.
awful, yeah.
That's probably, I think it's older. Like I think some creepypastas originated there.
Okay.
Like that's
Huh.
where a lot of creepypastas would originate, like forum sites like that. I know the Rake creepypasta
Yeah.
that originated on 4chan. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Slender Man originated on
Originated
Something
off there.
Awful. I'm pretty sure. Slender Man. Let me see. It's a fictional character, not the movie. Can you imagine having to watch the Slender Man movie from 2018?
You know, I actually wish that they would make like a good movie out of that.
Yeah. It was the
I always
Something
did find
Awful.
that like really creepy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the Something Awful forum. But yeah, honestly, like I think I almost feel like I mentioned it earlier on the podcast. The movie Sinister almost is a Slender Man adaptation. Honestly, like you could call that movie Slender Man, and if you just made Bagul look slightly more like the Slender Man, because he already looks like him. He's dressed exactly like him, like from the neck down.
The narrative is kind of yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the narrative with him and like the whole thing with the kids is kind of along those lines anyway.
Yeah, and the way he lives in videos, doesn't Slender Man sort of live in photographs or something like that? I don't
know.
Or does
Like
he just live in the woods?
I
I don't
have
remember.
I have played that Slenderman game, like the original one. Like back then, it was just like a game where you were just like a child with like a lamp
Oh god.
and like you know like a flashlight. That's what that game was. It was terrifying, terrifying playing that game.
That sounds horrific.
It was huge at the time. Oh yeah, dude, it was huge at the time because like PewDiePie was making videos like playing it and stuff, and it was literally just that. It was just like you're in the middle of the woods, you have a flashlight, and then you're just walking around,
Yeah.
and then you just start seeing that thing, and then you're just like going wherever it's not, and eventually it just catches you. But dude, that was terrifying.
Yeah, I bet.
So
dude.
if you haven't played that thing, that's probably for the better.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Yeah, no, I would like a solid attempt at a Slender Man film. I think they attempted
Slenderman movie.
yeah. I think they attempted the Rake, I believe. I want to say they did, but I think it ended up just being some kind of direct to video garbage.
Mm.
I don't think they really. I can't think of any creepypasta movies that have actually become really famous.
Mm.
Creepypasta movies.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I know that they made a Slenderman movie, but I know that it was like dog shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it had like a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. People shat on that movie. Oh, you know
Maybe the
what?
Bye Bye Man originated there.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? There was some success, I think, with the creepypasta genre in television because they had. I've been meaning to check this out forever. That Channel Zero show.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
I've heard like the first season of that, and some even say the second season. They're the shit. They're really good.
Mm.
I know the first season.
You know what? I never.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the first
Oh,
season. The first season is
yeah, go ahead.
Edward, chill. No, I'm just kidding. The first the first season is based on the Candle Cove creepypasta, and then the second season is based on NoEnd House, which
I gotta watch that.
Yeah. Do you remember NoEnd House?
Oh yeah, I read that, dude.
Dude, that was pretty scary, man.
That was terrifying. That was terrifying.
What were you gonna say? Well, we were kind of talking over each other.
Um, oh no, dude, I was gonna say that Guillermo del Toro show, like Cabinet of Curiosities or something like that. I still have to check that out.
Oh yeah, that's right. My dad was telling me about that. He was apparently watching that, and he
Really?
said it was pretty good. Yeah, I gotta check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta check that out, dude. Like just talking about this, like horror like show, like anthology adaptations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, No End
Yeah,
House freaked me
but
out as a kid, man. That
no,
freaked.
that freaked me out. No, dude, I remember when I read that, I like imagined it in my head like so vividly.
Oh, I did too.
Like it like haunted me. I to this day I can remember like how I can remember like reading it and like sections of my imagination, like how my imagination like interpreted and things. Like it was terrifying.
Oh
Like
yeah.
some of the words like some of like my biggest like oh I should not have done that moments when it came to like reading or watching scary movies came from creepypasta shit.
Oh
Of just
yeah.
being like oh I shouldn't be reading this, but now I'm reading it and here I am.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I remember when I discovered them. I remember when I discovered creepypastas. The first thought it was ironic because the night before, I remember I had watched The Conjuring, and I was like, all right, that was sort of scary, I guess. And then I remember like the next day, this was when I was like a teenager, discovering
Mm.
creepypastas. And my first thought was, this is so much scarier than The Conjuring. like
Yeah,
my first thought was, these scare me so much more than The Conjuring movie did, you know?
yeah.
But yeah, No End House freaked me out. For anyone listening
Mm.
I feel like most people listening know what these are, but anyone listening who doesn't know that one, No End House, it's like a guy basically takes a payment. He like takes up an offer to get paid to go through a haunted house basically. And the first few
Mhm.
rooms, it's like 12 rooms, and the first couple rooms are just little paper mache ghosts and like a, you know, like some mummy figurine, one of those like things that might be outside someone's doorstep on Halloween. And it's just laughable. And then he gets to like the third one, and the nightmare begins, where he's just in this endless sort of loop, like just going through these rooms, and he encounters just these horrific visions and all this crazy shit. And the ending sticks with you because he gets out of room 12, like the final room, and he's back in the lobby where the paper mache ghosts and stuff are. And I remember the
Mm.
ending is something like, I laughed as I drove home. I laughed all the way as I walked up my driveway and
Well,
up
yeah,
to
dude,
my door,
it's
and I laughed.
horrifying. Yeah,
Yeah, then he goes, I laughed when I saw the and he's like, and then I laughed as I saw the number 13 etched into my door. I was like, oh shit.
yeah,
He's never
yeah,
getting out of there, man. So
yeah,
scary. Um
yeah.
there were a few that really scared me. There's some underrated ones too. Because a lot of the mainstream ones, like I know Jeff the Killer, that image is really famous, but the story is
Yeah,
actually
I remember that. Yeah,
complete garbage.
the story's not good, but I remember that image. And at the end of that story, it just shows you like the image of him.
Yeah.
Very unpleasant one.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Rake
Yeah.
scared me quite a bit. The Rake scared me
What
a
was that
lot.
about? Because I don't remember the names very well. I just remember like certain stories.
Yeah, if you look up the Rake, it's like it looks kind of like Gollum almost from Lord of the Rings, or
Mm,
a little bit like those things from The Descent. Like it's just kind of this
mm,
scrawny humanoid thing. But the story was basically this woman wakes up in the middle of the night, like her and her husband wake up in the middle of the night, and the Rake is just sitting at the foot of their bed, like this creature. And then it runs out of the room and runs down the hall to the kids' room.
mm.
And then they run after it, and it basically kills the kids. and then the husband dies as he's rushing them to the hospital. He dies like in a car accident or something. Really dark, very dark.
Yeah.
But then the story continues with the woman. She like lives alone basically, and she realizes that the Rake is still kind of stalking her, and she sets up a digital recorder near her bed, and then when she listens back to it, she can hear it, I guess, like speaking while she's while she's sleeping, just like really fucking scary.
Yeah.
But that one scared me.
They made a movie about that.
The Rake?
Yeah, is that a movie? Yeah, that's like a movie with like a 12% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another one of those crap ones. It came out a few years ago, I remember, too. Yeah, 2018, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah, it was. It's a shame because the stories are really scary, man, but
Yeah.
I don't know, for whatever reason, they just can't make it happen in film. But I guess in...
No, they can't make them into like decent movies.
Yeah, but I guess in television with Candle Cove, they made it happen, or with Channel Zero. The first season was the Candle Cove creepypasta. That one was always pretty creepy. I remember.
Yeah,
there's some underrated.
I have it.
I
have it open, like the
you?
Rake one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll probably read that at some point.
Oh, the creepypasta.
I'll let it be, and yeah, I have the creepypasta open.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so scary.
I'll get to it.
Yeah. There were some underrated ones that I actually found really scary. Probably my favorite of all time, and I think it may have even been taken down for some reason off of the Creepypasta wiki, which is crazy. It's still on creepypasta.com, but the way he did it was like he would update it every few years because it was written like investigative journalism. But the creepypasta is called 1999, and it's basically about this guy who grew up in Canada, in this city called Caledon or something like that, and basically on one of the public access channels, there's this strange show called Mr. Bear's Cellar. Have you ever heard of this one? And like basically weird shit happens on it, and long story short, it's basically the broadcastings of some serial killer that dresses up like a bear, and he like lures children to his house and then kills them like on camera. And the whole thing is like him now as an adult, because he almost gets lured to that house as a kid. And then the main character as an adult is now writing these sort of journal entries as he's investigating, because basically what happened was the guy who dressed up as Mr. Bear like went missing and the police never found him. So the story is him kind of like piecing together. It has a similar feel to Zodiac, the movie Zodiac, a little bit. Very creepy, man. I always found it so scary when I was younger reading it. That was a good one. That was a really good one.
I really can't remember like the names of any of these things, man. But to me, and I think I remember talking to you about it, like to me, like one that I actually like still think about was just one about this guy whom he was just like in his house, and he knew that his brother was like his brother had like a room like in the basement, and he just like kept hearing like this like tapping all the time. Remember me like saying this to you at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever read that? Like, did I
did.
tell you what the name of that thing was? Okay.
I think it's called.
Because I remember.
I think it's called We Dance or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's the name of it. That sent like shivers on my spine. Jeez.
Oh yeah, We Danced.
We Dance.
Yeah, that one's pretty creepy. Yeah,
But I think
it
about
ends
that.
with him saying, "I flip on a light and fall into a chair. It's safe. I relax and think for a few moments, but then I notice my foot tapping. Maybe this song isn't so bad. I almost like it enough to dance to it. So I drop down on my hands and feet and I start." Yeah, that one's fucking
I don't,
creepy, man.
I don't know what that one's so creepy. Like I don't know what it is about that one, but it's just so like it's like this weird circle, where of like this like weird like inevitability of like just something like consuming you, maybe like your psyche or something. I don't know,
Yeah,
but that one terrified me when I read it. Like it just terrified me, and I actually think about that story like at least like once every like 2 weeks, like once in a while. That just comes up to my head randomly,
yeah.
Not happy thoughts. I'm glad that I stopped reading those fucking things. They're not great. This is not good for you. It's not good for you to be consuming this like horrific like imagery in your head.
No, not at all. Yeah, I ate it up when I was a teenager. There was
So did
another
I.
one.
So did I.
Yeah, there was another one that was excuse me, that was pretty underrated, but it was one of the first ones that I read. I don't think it's very famous at all, actually. It's called Where Bad Kids Go. Have you ever heard of
Mm.
that one?
I don't think so. Again, like, dude, I don't remember like the names of any of these stories.
Oh yeah,
I did read like a lot of them. I usually would read like I was like lazy about it because I usually would just read like the shorter ones. If it's happened one and it would be like a long ass like one, I'll be like, no, I'm not reading that.
yeah.
So the longer ones I didn't read them, but like the shorter ones, like a humongous amount of like the really short like little ones, I read a lot of those.
Yeah. The Where Bad Kids Go is it's like a it's a like little flash fiction, but it's like that one is basically this guy remembering when he was a little kid and he lived in I believe it was Lebanon, and it was they had like propaganda on TV where they would have these little like late night specials where it was a kids show, and it was like it was they were basically using like scare tactics to keep kids in line, so they were saying, like bad kids, don't brush their teeth, bad kids don't eat their vegetables, things like that. And then the show at the at the end of the show, it would always kind of like zoom in on this door, and as it got closer to the
Mm.
door, you could hear kids inside the room screaming in pain, and then it would say like where bad kids go. And then basically the story ends with the guy, he becomes basically like a photographer for journalism or whatever, and he figures
Mm.
out the location where they filmed it, and he goes in and he finds this he finds that door, and he goes inside, and inside all over the floor there's like bits of like bone and stuff, like bones and like
Mm.
little
Mm.
skeletons and stuff on the ground. And then hanging from the ceiling is a microphone that was like, it's supposed to be like it was picking up the screams or whatever. So they were like
Mm.
real screams. But that one always freaked me out because again, it's like it's just the stuff that you don't see. It's just that freaking
Mm.
subtle, creepy ass shit. That one scared the shit out of me. I remember.
Yeah.
But that's a really underrated one. I've never talked to anybody who's ever heard of that one.
Really?
No.
Huh. Well, hopefully we've like enticed some people to seek these out, but I don't recommend it. If anybody's like listening to us and being like, "Oh, these guys are really making me feel like reading some creepypastas," don't read any creepypastas.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, a lot of them are scary. A lot of them are like good attempts, and it's like this would be scary if it were
Yeah.
written better. But then, of
Mhm.
course, there's like the OGs. There's the Russian sleep experiment. You remember that one? I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, I know that one. I know that one. Yeah, I know that one.
That one's freaky,
I know
man.
that one. I didn't
Smile
read that
Dog.
one. I listened to that one. Like there's like some of the longer ones I listened to, like Mr. Creepypasta or whatever. I would just like just listen to them.
Yeah.
Like the Ronald McDonald one, that one. Like a lot of them I listened to them. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not gonna read this. I'll just have a guy just read this for me.
Mr. Creepypasta is awesome, man. I love that guy. He's read a couple of my short stories. You knew
So
that, right?
that's what I was gonna shout you out. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that's happened.
Yeah. No, he's awesome, man. He's a
Yeah.
good dude, and I've talked to him because he's asked. I've sent him some of my stories, and he would reply and stuff, and we would chat back and forth sometimes. Great guy. Obviously I'm biased because he's read some of my stories. I'm like, oh, he's the best guy ever.
He's great. He's the best guy ever.
Thank you, Mr. Creepypasta. Very cool. Yeah.
Thanks, guy.
But yeah, that was flattering. That was nice.
No, that guy was awesome. A lot of them. I just heard I know them because that guy read them.
Yeah.
Great guy. He's doing the Lord's work.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, Edward, give us your recap.
Well, sir, this past week I did not watch any movies. This goes.
Big
but
surprise!
I did listen. Yeah, right. But I did listen to some music. Because I've been in the Fs, and I listened to the album by the Free Nationals. It's self-titled. This is the Free Nationals, and their album they kind of came to prominence. This album came out in 2019, and they kind of came to prominence because they performed a lot with Anderson .Paak. They were like his backing band, and he would always introduce them. So they made an album, and it's kind of like a bad, not good album in the sense that they're doing like all the instrumentation and all the background stuff, and then they bring guest artists. This is a decent album. Like it suffers, I feel like, from being a little bit too of its time, where it brings everybody in here that was like really cool. Daniel Caesar's in the song number 2. He's in that one. That's a pretty good song. Sid is in one of the songs. Anderson .Paak, T.I. is even in one of the songs called "Cut Me a Break," which is okay. And Conway the Machine's in one of the songs. So it's like it just feels like it's trying to be really hip, and sometimes because of that, the album comes across as shallow. Like it just comes across as attempts at being like faux, like cool and faux, like great in this like weird post Frank Ocean kind of way for an R&B album. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it just feels like it's trying to replicate these like really smooth sounds, get these like really cool people in there, but nobody's really doing all that much, and it just kind of feels like more of like an exercise in like how can we trick people into thinking this is great when it's actually just kind of okay. So it's like a weird takedown of this album, but this album's alright.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fun time. Like it's a kind of like, to me, I would say that it's just kind of like a decent album, like worth like an afternoon. And if somebody's like into just like more vibey like R&B, like hip hop, then maybe that's something for them. I think it's something for me, honestly, but I feel like I can see a little bit through it with so much time having passed since the first time I listened to this thing. I'm like, now I'm kind of just like, oh, there's a little bit of phoniness into this album. And they never made another one, I think. So let me see. I'm looking at their stuff. Yeah, they only made this one album. So I feel like maybe they recognized that too. But they were like, oh, let's make it a one and done. But from that, I listened to the man who I said I was going to listen to.
I just saw it open on your phone too when you showed your phone.
Yeah. And by that I mean Future. Listen to Future. Mr. Future.
Future Hendrix.
I did not. Yeah, Mr. Future Hendrix. I did not get all the way through his discography, but I did listen to, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4 albums. Out of like 20. So that's a lot,
Which ones?
I listened to Honest. I listened to Monster.
Oh yeah.
I listened to Beast Mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to DS2.
Yeah. Yep, those are the
and
essentials.
I have already listened. Yeah, and I have already listened to What a Time to Be Alive.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes 5 albums. I still technically have to listen to Evil and maybe Hendrix and maybe Future Hendrix, Save Me and High Off Life. Like I might listen to those, but I think I really have already covered like his like big prominent records that put him in the forefront of everything. And This is what I gotta say. Except for maybe, well, I feel like maybe I do have to check that one out because I know there's like a handful of good songs in there.
Was his self-titled album too? You gonna leave that on off the table?
Which one?
His
Which one?
self-titled album, like it's just called Future.
Let me see. I'm looking because he. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I might listen to that because I think I'll still listen to Evil, Future, and then Hendrix,
Yeah.
and I might listen to Future Hendrix, and I might listen to Save Me and High Off Life, but I won't go past that. I've already listened to Never. I Never Liked You, the one he released last year, and that was like a really sleepy like record. That was not really good. Um, but on topic, Honest was an interesting album because Honest feels like the I want love and affection future. And you know what I'm referencing
Yeah.
when I say that.
Love with Rihanna. You know,
Yeah.
that's actually a good song. I know you have like a distaste for that song.
Yeah.
I kind of like that song actually.
Yeah. But but I say this because in this album, there's songs like Move That Dope, and there's songs like Honest, there's songs like I Won with Kanye. And Never Satisfied with Drake's actually pretty good. But then there's like a bunch of like this like mopey soapy like songs. And the fun thing is that even in those other songs like Move That Dope and stuff like that, his delivery is not what it is today. Because now if you listen to a Future album, he always tries to be like really like I'm a cool guy and I'm doing a thing, It just always feels like he never goes like past a specific octave
Yeah.
unless he's like just trying to agree with his like mouth, like with his vocals. But in this album, like in Honest, he's like he goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
There are love and affection cuts in here where he's just like singing and like really putting it out there, like
Just
really being like,
crooning.
oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, just crooning all the way. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Song number 12 is one of those where he's just talking about like what all he's done, all the sacrifices he's made. Oof, man! In that song, he's like really putting it out there. Um, so because of that, like I appreciated him, but because of that, there were like I was not like the biggest fan of this record, and it's like obviously this is the record where he was kind of putting the pieces together, but
Yeah.
I was not like huge, on it. And I moved to Monster because I
Karate
would give
Chop
Honest like a
is a classic. Karate Chop with
Karate,
Lil
Karate Chop's
Wayne.
pretty good.
God, I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that
Karate
song.
Chop's pretty good.
I like off of this
But I
album.
didn't.
I like Move That
Go ahead.
Dope.
Yeah.
How Can I Not and Karate Chop. Those are like the standouts for me off that one.
Yeah, no, I like Move That Dope, Honest, and I Won, and Never Satisfied with Drake. And like some of the other songs were like a little bit of like, okay, that's all right, But even Karate Chop, I wasn't like big, this is great, Wayne's here, this is all right. But I didn't like end up like adding it to like my playlist or anything like that. Um, but then I moved to Monster, and I feel like Monster is really where he found his footing in that album.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this is the album. Like this is the album. When I listened to this, I was like, okay, this he got it.
Monster's his
Radical.
best in my opinion.
Yeah, Radical, Monster, Throwaway.
After
that
that.
with Wayne to me. No, I didn't like After That. Like to me, that was kind of like a skip a little bit.
Oh.
Same thing with My Savages, but I did like Tupac.
Tupac's a
Gangland was
classic.
his. Yeah, Tupac's a classic. Gangland was a skip.
around my head like I'm Tupac. Love that one.
Eddie was okay, and Hardly's okay, but Wesley Presley's amazing.
Fire,
It's an
dude.
amazing song.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think it's underrated because it's not even starred. The only starred songs are Throwaway and Coding Crazy, which are amazing songs. But Wesley Presley is amazing. Like like you were
So
the one
good.
who talked to me about this like last week, I think, or like 2 weeks ago. You sent me the song. I listened to it and I was like, holy shit. And then when I was listening to this album when it came in, I was like, here it is. It's great song. Great song. Could not say enough.
So good.
But I thought it was a really good album. Like I would give this one like a 7 out of 10. I thought it was really good.
What about Codeine Crazy?
Again,
You like Codeine Crazy?
But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, that song to this day, that's an incredible song.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Nothing bad to say about
Monster's
it.
his best, man, honestly. It's like when he
Yeah.
came into his
It's got
own and also peaked
yeah.
at the same time.
Exactly. No, no, no. I disagree, and I'll get to it. But because to me, this album has skips. Because again, like to me, like after that, My Savages are skips, Gangland Fetty and Hardly are skips, and Showed Up and Mad Love are skips. So basically, I'm just saying that I really liked Wesley Presley, Coding Crazy, Tupac, and then Radical Monster and Throwaway. And I do appreciate after that, and I do appreciate Hardly, and I do appreciate Showed Up, but not that much.
Yeah.
Like I liked the album enough to be like, okay, this is a pretty good album, but not I didn't like love it. And then I listened to the 2015 album Beast Mode
Yeah, what'd
with
you think of Beast Mode?
Zaytoven. Say what?
Yeah, what'd you think of Beast Mode?
This one was interesting because it was like it felt like a real like throwback because it was cool to track after tracks, hear Zaytoven,
Yeah.
that was dope, man. It's like being like, oh, this is the Zaytoven album because I know that he and Zaytoven had a huge album and this is it, 25 minutes, 8 songs. And the number one thing that I can say about Beast Mode is that it at least has 2 good songs.
Yeah. Which are?
And because the first one with Young Scooter, I don't care for that song. Ain't True, I don't care for that song. No Basic, don't care.
I like Ain't You.
Just Like Brothers. You like Ain't You?
Yeah.
I didn't care for it. I didn't care for Just Like Brothers. I didn't care for Where I Come From. I didn't care for Forever, ever. I didn't care for any of those. I liked to Lay Up and I liked Peacoat. And Peacoat was the best one. That was the one where I was like, oh, this is great. Loved Peacoat. Really liked Lay Up. Everything else was kind of like whatever. So I felt like in every song Zaytoven was like delivering, where it's like, oh, I always like the Zaytoven beats. I always like the church piano, hip hop stuff. But which obviously is kind of falling off of Grace lately. But I thought he really hit it out of the park with a lot of the production. I thought that the one who didn't come through in this album was Future with like the hooks, where I couldn't get behind the hooks like in No Basic and in Ooh and in Ain't You, honestly, and Just Like Brothers. I just couldn't get behind like the hooks that he was delivering. But I always liked like what Zaytoven was doing. So then I went into DS2, which is the album that he made with Metro Boomin. And I have to say that I think to this point in his discography, listening, I think DS2 is his best album.
Think so, huh?
Yeah, I think DS2 is where it's at. Because Thought It Was a Drought is great. And it's an amazing way to open this album. And it obviously makes me feel really bad for, what's his name? Scottie Pippen. But it's a hilarious song.
I've never I've always thought It Was a Drought was like so. I've never really cared for that song too much.
Oh, dude, I think it's a great song.
Same with Stick Talk. I feel like
hilarious.
Stick Talk's kind of stupid too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I liked Stick Talk too. Like I was just like really like feeling all these like dumb like because they are kind of dumb songs, but it does feel like with this album. This album to me, like DS2 to me, is like the version of What a Time to Be Alive with Drake, but just him.
Yeah.
And in What a Time to Be Alive, he was the best parts of it. Like I think I gave What a Time to Be Alive like a 9 out of 10, and it was all because of him. Like he's the best part of that album.
Yeah.
And I thought It Was a Drought was great. Really, like I was like, this is a fun song, and I really liked it. I Serve the Bass was ass. And it reminded me of like this Distorted Records, the song that opens A$AP Rocky's Testing album. But at least Distorted Records is like actually okay. I Serve the Bass just sucks. It's just distorted, and Future sucks over it. And Metro Boomin is not good at making, or at least at this point in time, he was not good at making this kind of like noisy, like kind of songs, like Death Grips adjacent, like noise, not good. But Where You At with Drake still holds up rather. I didn't like Groupies. Little One is okay, but it's like kind of grating. But I did like Stick Talk. I did like Slave Master. I did like Blow a Bag, Colossal, Money, like Blood on the Money is great, dude. Like Blood on the Money is a great song. The Percocet and the Super Joint is great. Know the Meaning's great, and Fuck Up Some Commas is great.
I like.
And the
Oh, no, what
go
about
ahead.
Real Sisters? That's probably my favorite off the album, Real Sisters.
It's a little bit. I like it a little bit.
I like that one, man.
Little bit.
That's probably that. The standouts on this album for me are Real Sisters and Percocet and Stripper Joint. Those are great songs.
Yeah, that's
for me.
great. That's great. Yeah. It's like Sister's not bad, so it follows it up well from the Percocet song. I thought it was great. I really thought that like this. I think that DS2 and Monster are kind of head to head.
Yeah.
One can edge the other out, but I think that in me listening to these albums, like I give the edge a little bit to DS2.
Okay.
But it also is the one that I listened to the most recently. I listened to it literally over yesterday and today. That's where I stand. That's been my future breakdown.
Future Hendrix.
What about you, sir? What do you got? And next week we'll probably talk about the other half of Futures.
Right. We'll talk about Evil.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Low Life. Low Life's like probably his best song, honestly. I mean, that's a fantastic song.
A great song. That's a
Yeah.
great song. Yeah.
I would definitely, if you continue going through Future's discography too, I would definitely recommend World on Drugs, him and Juice WRLD.
Yeah, I have that. Like it's in my albums, and I might listen to it because it's always been like a. I think I will just because it's been sitting on my albums like for so long because I added it when it came out and never listened to it. But
That one's great.
I was thinking of skipping it. But if you say so, then I'll listen to it.
Yeah, I would listen to that one. That one's got some standouts. Like I'm gonna send you one of my favorites off that album. Funny enough, Juice WRLD's actually not even on this one. Because they do that whole thing where they have like one by just Future and one by just Juice WRLD or whatever. But I just sent you one of my favorites.
Oh, I see.
Oxy, that's definitely one of my favorites off this one. Afterlife is great. Ain't Living Right is probably my favorite one off this album. And then Fine China, that's a classic. That's a good one. But yeah, man. Yeah, for me, let's see. Well, for one, on the music end, you actually inspired me to listen to Freddie Gibbs' Babyface Killa album again. And
yeah, what do you think, dude?
Yeah, because I was like, you know what? Because I've over the past few years, I've been so into his newer stuff with, whether it's Madlib or The Alchemist, just his new stuff, that I sort of forgot how great some of his older stuff was, especially Babyface Killa. And I feel like Babyface Killa, that album, like he really he struck a great balance between mainstream kind of stuff and then more of his usual flavor, which is a little more artful, sort of MC kind of stuff. He strikes like a great balance where he doesn't even have like songs that are just mainstream feeling and then songs that are just like Freddie Gibbs being an MC, kind of trying to be artsy and like 90s rap kind of stuff, kind of sound. They all strike a balance somewhere in the middle, like every song does. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just a great album, man. And I love.
So do you agree? Do you agree with me when I placed it like third all time for his records?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, he just, like I said, man, he just strikes a great balance where he's not trying to. It just feels like a really authentic sound for him. But yeah, man, I mean, Still Living, classic, of course. About it. We talked about this last week, but
yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, of course.
I have a new appreciation for Kush Cloud. That's such a good one. That's such a great song.
Yeah, that song's great. That's such a great song. Yeah,
they're like really artfully made songs that all have sort of a pop appeal as well. It's such a well-rounded.
They do.
Yeah.
They
It's
do.
such a
And I think I
well-rounded
mentioned that.
project.
I think I mentioned that last week that I felt like he never recreated that again
Yeah.
until the last one,
Yeah.
because I thought that Sold Separately was the first time that he actually struck that again.
Yeah. Yeah, he strikes a perfect balance. Because a lot of these other rappers, like even great rappers, guys like Kendrick Lamar, the other kind of rappers that are considered goats, because Freddie Gibbs is starting to get up there, where despite his L's that he has been taking recently, old Spready has been become he's being recognized these days as one of the goats, and um a lot of the greats these days, they do this thing where like J. Cole will release an album, and it's like, okay, on this song he's being really really edgy and artsy and stuff, but then on this song he's just doing a trap record, and there's no sort of like middle ground authenticity to it, at least for me. Whereas with Freddie Gibbs, I feel like he strikes again like that just great sort of middle ground where it just feels really authentic. Like he's playing around with pop flavors, but keeping it real authentic and still creating stuff that's interesting, that sounds interesting and that's edgy enough to unfortunately not really get radio play, but
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so on the music end, I definitely revisited that. You inspired me to revisit that. And then on the
Well, I'm glad.
yeah, man, and then on the film side of things, it was Mother's Day this past weekend. So
That's right.
spent some time with my mom, and we watched her favorite movie Sunday night with the family, or one of her favorite
Yeah,
movies, Terms of Endearment, directed by.
yeah. I've seen Terms of Endearment.
Have you? I think you
Yeah,
watched it with us, didn't you? Like a long time ago, maybe during
yeah,
the
I did.
quarantine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Man, that's a tearjerker, dude. My God.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get through the third act of that movie without at least getting a lump in your throat, like I don't know, man. That's a tough one, man. There's something
Yeah.
about also because I'm a fan of James L. Brooks as a filmmaker. Like I thought Broadcast News was okay. That's James L. Brooks, right? Broadcast News.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I thought Broadcast News was okay. I really like As Good as It Gets. I think that's a great movie with Jack Nicholson.
Mm-hmm. I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Terms of Endearment's a really solid film as well. There's something really just authentic and crisp about the dialogue in that movie in Terms of Endearment, where I don't know, the characters just come across so human and so honest in the dialogue. It's just it's a similar feel of it almost runs parallel with, so like George Orwell had this whole thing about writing, where he was like, he had like 5 rules of specifically prose in writing, but just
Mm-hmm.
how to use language in your writing. And one of his sort of points was, if it's something that you hear every day, like uh cold as ice, something like that, for example, find something else, find a more interesting way to say it, something that you hear every day, and hard as a rock, shit like that, find a better way to say it. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like James L. Brooks, which I want to say he wrote Terms of Endearment as well, screenplay, I would assume. Let me just make
Mm-hmm.
sure here, because I don't want to give
I think
credit
he
where it's
did,
not due.
or maybe like co-written. I think
Yeah,
he did. I think he did.
let me make sure here. Producer. Yeah, he wrote. He looks like he solely wrote it. But Yeah, I feel like he follows that to a T, where every single line of dialogue is just said in an interesting way, an authentic way. Like it's something where it's like I've never heard that point made in that way before, or I've never heard someone say what they're communicating in that way before. That's the best way I can describe the dialogue in that movie. The dialogue in terms of Endearment, definitely a standout. Like if you're a writer and you want to watch or read good examples of great dialogue to improve your dialogue, I would highly recommend adding Terms of Endearment to your watch list. And then the other thing that I watched this past week was John Mulaney's new Netflix special, Baby
Yeah,
J.
I've been meaning to watch that. I've been meaning to watch that. How was that?
It was good. So I saw this hour already live. I want to say about a year ago, I saw him live in Charlotte. I want to say it was like last summer, maybe. But yeah, and it was great, hilarious. He really gets, he gets into some real shit, man. I mean, he talks about his whole, his time in rehab and the intervention, and his time as a drug addict. He goes over a lot of different stuff. He talks about he's got some great jokes, some great stories in that special, man. Check it out. If you like John Mulaney, you'll love this special. If you like stand-up comedy, you'll probably like this special. It's great. He's always a riot, man. He's so freaking funny. He's very unique too. He's got a unique sort of style.
He is, yeah.
So he's almost like an edgy Jerry Seinfeld. Like an edgy
He feels
Jerry
that way.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, cause he kind of strikes that a little bit. I've followed that guy's journey for a while because his very first stand-up special, I like saw it when it came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
New in Town, that one. So I've seen like every single one of that guy's specials. So I'll definitely be checking this one out for sure.
Yeah, that was great. And that I want to say that's it. So with that being said,
all right, dude. Yeah, it's Godzilla time.
It's time for Godzilla! Do this thing. Well, Edward, this was obviously your first viewing of the movie of the week, Godzilla Final Wars, a 2004 sci-fi action Japanese kaiju film. It was the last Godzilla film to use suitmation, which was basically people actually playing. Yeah, people wearing monster suits to play the monsters, and using mostly practical effects. This was like the last of the quote unquote older Godzilla movies, and it was a standalone Godzilla film, the 50th anniversary of Godzilla, and then they put him to rest until Gareth Edwards brought him back to the big screen in America, and then of course in 2014, and then of course Hideaki Anno brought him back to Japan in 2016 with Shin Godzilla. But Edward, I want to hear your thoughts on Godzilla Final Wars, which I consider to be one of the greatest popcorn films of all time. I want to hear your thoughts, Edward.
Well, I have an interesting history with this movie, as you know, because when we were, I think, in our second year of college, Jake insisted upon himself. So I think it might have been first or second year. But remember that you were like, I love this, Godzilla movies, and Jake really wanted me to see all of them. He really wanted me to see not all of them, but he really wanted me to see like a list. Yeah,
I gave you like a selection. I gave you like a list of probably 7 of what are considered like some of the best.
Yeah, it was like however many Godzilla movies I've seen, it's because of that. Because the only Godzilla movie that I saw out of my own volition was the Anno movie. And
but then you and I watched
like,
the original 1954 together, and of course that's a great film.
Yes. Yeah, so we had like a big Godzilla journey. And I remember that you and I both watched Shin Godzilla for the first time together.
Yeah.
Um, and it was like a copy that I had of it. Um, and I love Shin Godzilla. It's a great movie. And I love the original Godzilla. I think both of those movies are great. I have like more love for the Anno version than for the original version, but I think they're just as good at each other. I think they're both just amazing films.
Yeah.
And through Jake's recommendation, I believe that I saw more than half of the list that Jake gave me. But a lot of it just ended like with such like frustration from me. Like, because again, I watched like a lot of those movies, like because of that. Um I watched like what? Like I'm pretty sure that you gave me a list of 10, and I think I watched 6 or 7 of them. And through that, I remember just like talking to you because I remember I would watch one and you would like excitedly come to me and you would be like, "Oh, Edward, what do you think?" Um, every time, I think literally every time, I was like, I was like, Jake, I hated that. I hated that movie. There was not a single one of those that I saw that I was like actually like, oh, that was great. Like I would come out and I would like, oh, there was like a 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. Like I hated all of those movies. And the only comical thing that kept coming out of them for me was that Godzilla kept getting meaner and meaner. Like every single one of those movies, he would just look more determined. He would look more like mean, and like he was like on a mission. You know, like oh, this guy is like on a mission. And I
Yeah.
remember saying to Jake, thought that Godzilla was like a loan shark,
Yeah.
just because of how determined and mean like that guy, like Godzilla was. And my mission through Jake's recommendations were to make it to Final Wars. That was like my goal, and
You
I
failed.
stopped like left like 4 films before Final War. I was like, I can't do it. And I remember saying that to Jake. I was like, dude, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like I think the last one that I saw was like the '92 one.
I think the
And I
last
was like,
one.
I give up.
I think you watched Godzilla 2000. That was the last one you watched. Mind you, though, here's the thing too. So I mean, I haven't most Godzilla movies I haven't seen since I was a kid. You know what I mean? So I was sort of recommending you like, okay, these are the ones that are considered, the best because I've seen all the Godzilla
Mhm.
movies. But honestly, dude, most of them I haven't watched since I was a kid. There's a few that I'll revisit, but the ones that I'll revisit are like Shin Godzilla, the original
Mhm.
Godzilla, um, Final Wars. I'll revisit here and there. Even Final Wars, though, I hadn't seen in a long ass time, man. To be honest,
Mhm.
I haven't watched really that many Godzilla movies in full in recent years. Like, I'm talking in like the past decade. So, in my defense, because I think what happens with these movie monsters, whether it's Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or whoever, is right. Like the first movie comes out, and it's like great, and people love it and they latch onto it, and that's why they make more. But
Mhm.
then the sequels, it's just there's this demand for sequels, but it's like they just have to keep figuring out ways to keep using this monster, and it just becomes exhaustive. And then once in a while, they'll do
Mhm.
something fresh and new with it, and usually that's in the form of a reboot. Um, but yeah, it's just what it is with monster films, man. And people have been doing this with horror films since horror films have been around, since monster films have been around,
Mhm.
since Universal was doing it with their 5 Dracula movies and their 6 Frankensteins and their 7 Mummy movies. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
they've been
Yeah.
doing it since the dawn of horror, and they will continue to do it with horror and monster films.
Jake.
What?
I did not watch Godzilla 2000.
You did. I remember us
Cuz I
talking about it.
no, dude, I didn't log it cuz like I knew that I didn't get that close. I didn't get that close. I watched the last Godzilla movie that I watched was Godzilla versus Destroyer.
No, you watched
So
Godzilla
then,
2000 because I remember us
dude, I don't.
talking. Dude, we talked about specific scenes. That's
But,
the one where at the
but,
end the guy yells Godzilla, and then Godzilla like
yeah.
destroys the building. That's that one.
Oh, dude, if I did, I must, because I didn't log it. So if I did, I must have just been like, fuck all this. Because I did not log that movie. I didn't even put it in like on Letterboxd, and I watched that movie.
Oh, you
But
did. I remember you talking about it.
but I have a history with this, and I would say that with all the movies, all the Godzilla movies that I've seen, like all the old Godzilla movies that I saw, because of you, I watched like 7 of those old movies, including 2000 that I apparently didn't log. So maybe that makes like 8 movies of Godzilla that I watched. But because of you, I watched all these movies. So I would consider myself to be above just like the average normie like Godzilla person. Because I've seen a lot of these fucking movies. I've seen too many of these movies to be considered like a Godzilla normie. I'm at least like a Godzilla fan level 1,
Yeah.
um, but the only thing that I can say about this movie, only thing that I can say about Final Wars, is that it was like I was having a nightmare. It was like I was having it was like I was having like a fever dream.
Oh yeah.
And and it just made me feel like I was sitting in my room in second year. And it just made me feel that way again, where I was just like, please end. I was like, please end. The whole time
Really?
I was like, this cannot
Really?
go by any faster than it's going. Hated this movie.
Really?
I hated it. I could not stand it. Like from the
Whoa.
fucking very beginning, with like the mustachioed American guy speaking Spanish, speaking English to everybody else speaking Japanese. From the very beginning, I was like, God, please make this movie end. And when they like threw Godzilla in the ice, I was like, they're gonna have to get Godzilla out of the ice. Like it was just like I had never seen this movie, and I knew because I was like, all the monsters are gonna show up, and then they're gonna have to get Godzilla out of the ice to kill the monsters. But what made this movie even more like irritating to me was the whole like X-Lien thing with the aliens
The
that were
zillions?
just humans. Yeah, the zillions. They were just humans. So or like they were just like this like weird like they were using like human like camouflage
Skin.
or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Like
There were
Men in Black.
there were skinwalkers. Yeah, there were skinwalkers. And like when those guys showed up, I was like, oh god. And then they made it about them. It was like, oh, they're controlling the monsters, and the main character, which is just a piece of toast. Like that guy is just a piece of toast. He's just a piece of white bread toast. Like that guy could not stand that character. But that guy was just like he was like, "Oh, I'm a mutant, but I'm the special mutant, and I'm assigned to guard this biologist." But when they like when they made it about the aliens controlling the monsters, and then it was like, "Oh, nobody can be trusted," and they made it be a thing between like Alien X and the main character, and then they juxtaposed those two guys with Godzilla, and the main monster, and I was just kind of like, "Oh, come on!" I was like, "Come on." Come on, let's get to the fight.
Oh
Let's get to the
man.
Godzilla throwing the laser. The best part about this movie, like the only redeeming part about this movie, not the bike scenes, not the silly like the Matrix Reloaded fights. The only redeeming part about this movie that I was like, this is great, was Godzilla's Mutant Ninja Turtles, like baby or whatever that thing was. That was the
What?
best part about the movie.
What? That's the shit I would cut out of this movie. Godzilla's
That was the best part
son.
of that movie.
That
That
was
was the best part
pure
about the
like
movie.
fan service. Ugh.
Godzilla's son, Mini Zilla or whatever they call it, that was the absolute best part about the movie. That thing was cute. That thing looked like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And when Godzilla was like facing with the humans at the end and being like, I'm gonna destroy you guys, he was like, no, humans are my friends. And then they walked into the sunset together. And that was the best part about the movie. I thought it was cute, you know.
What? Okay, dude, what about Godzilla stomping across the entire planet and wiping out all the monsters? Dude, that was the shit. That was
That was
awesome.
alright.
Oh, come
That
on.
was alright.
Are you shitting me? Man. Dude, I'm telling you, like this, dude, when this movie came out, 2004, I saw this movie probably a few years after it came out as a kid. Think about it, dude. Mid 2000s, right? No MCU. MCU wasn't around yet, right? All we had back then were the shitty Fantastic Four movies. We had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, but those were kind of low key. Dude, Final Wars was Infinity War for me when I was a kid, man. This was my Infinity War at 9 years old. This was
This
it,
is my
man.
Infinity War.
Dude, Godzilla Final Wars was my Infinity War as a 9-year-old. This was it, man. No, I love it, man. This movie holds such a special place in my heart, man. I love this movie. It's so fucking entertaining, man. And it is so, dude, it is so bad in a lot of places. Like it really is so poorly written.
Well, but
And
but
they
that's the
embraced
thing.
it, I think. They embraced
Yeah.
it.
Well, but
To an
that's
extent,
the thing
though,
that I was.
I do feel like they kind of failed at certain points where they were trying to
Yeah.
take it was trying to take itself a little bit seriously at certain points, and it completely fucking failed. They should have just gone full, like, full in. Sorry, I hit the mic there. Full into the, just GI Joe ridiculousness of it.
Mhm.
But now, man, I love this movie. I love the plot. Like as a kid, that was like the coolest shit to me. Where it was like, all right, well, we got all these monsters, and they're ruining the entire planet. So we got to go wake up
Yeah.
Godzilla so he can fuck them all up, and then we got to lock him back
Yeah.
up. Like that was
No,
the shit
like
to me as a kid, man.
I think, I think you have to take that into consideration. I think you have to take into consideration the fact that, like, you have like a really soft spot for these films.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you have like that childhood like appreciation for them. Because like, you know, I mean,
I feel like you got
it's
to
in the
respect the
2000.
I feel like you got to respect though, like the artfulness of this film. Though I mean, there really is like a lot of they accomplished a lot with it was a $20 million budget, and they made
Yeah.
this sort of big epic, just out of this world, sci-fi action monster
I mean,
film
there,
with
there's
mostly
really, there's
practical
really,
effects.
yeah,
Pretty
but
impressive.
a lot of the effects, non-practical. I was just kind of just, I was like, this is just a PS2 game,
Oh yeah,
you know. I was like, this is a PS2 game, and I hated like the exposition and how it was handled. Everything was just exposition,
oh yeah,
especially like that scene where they're just like in this like lab. And they just get transported into this cave, like randomly, unexplained, never happens again.
that's
They
the
just get
worst part of the
transported into this
movie.
cave where there's like two tiny people that just like give like the characters like all the exposition, and then they give him like a little sword or whatever that comes into play like at the end.
Yeah,
But I was just kind of like, dude, I just like legitimately, like I do appreciate the movie for what it did. I did appreciate like the little fights. I hated when the monsters were introduced. I hated the cartoon, like I hated those like weird like Looney Tune sound effects that they used,
yeah,
and I didn't like those like I didn't like those the things that they were doing like with people like in the U.S. and stuff, and then the monster shows up and kills everybody. I thought it was like strange. I was
yeah.
like, what is going on here? Like I couldn't follow the humor, where it was just kind of like cartoony and like dudes dying and the monsters squishing them. I was just kind of like, okay. I was just like, please, let's get to the part where Godzilla punches everybody. Like I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I was like, let's get me through all the exposition and all the human silliness and all the people in suits and all the skin crawler drama and like, oh, they don't blink and we'll prove it. This is your dog. Do you know your dog? And he's like, oh, he doesn't know his dog. I was just like, please, please.
Yeah. What did you think? You know who the mustache guy is, right? Do you know who that is?
What is that?
That's Don Fry. He's like a famous mixed martial artist. He's like a legend in
Huh.
the mixed martial arts world. He's been on.
Yeah, no, I didn't know who that was.
He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. Someone on YouTube said his voice sounds like a chainsaw, which is hilarious. It really does. Where he's like, I've defeated Godzilla before. I can do it again.
Do it again. Yeah.
I'll lock him up again. His acting is so bad too, man. And he's like,
his acting is horrible. His acting is horrible.
He probably had an easier time in a lot of his MMA fights than he did delivering those lines.
Yeah.
Oh man. No, I find this movie wickedly entertaining, man. I love it. I mean, I'd take this movie over any of the legendary Pictures Godzilla movies like any day, man. I'd take this movie. I'd watch this movie over Godzilla versus Kong or the 2014 Godzilla or Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
I'd pick this movie over any of the American Godzilla films. I can say.
No, I'm gonna say this. I enjoyed this movie, and it annoyed me less than the latest American Godzilla movie. But I mean like the latest like Godzilla standalone, like not the one with the monkey, but but the one where it's like
King of Monsters.
King of Monsters. Yeah, I hated that movie. Yeah. So I can say that I liked this one more than that one. But technically, this one's worse than that one. Technically, this one's worse than that one.
Well, yeah, in the sense that, like, I would agree with that. I would agree with that in the sense that you could put the Legendary Pictures one in theaters and have it be taken seriously, where this one you'd put in theaters, people would be, especially nowadays, people would be like, what the fuck is this? Because,
fuck is this? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it feels like a 2000s movie. And like you said, with those PS2, animations. I mean, was any CGI in 2004 really looking better though?
No. It was all ass. Yeah. But like, I also hated like all the Matrix stuff and all the like fighting stuff. I like wrote down like that, like really like faux, like they took that line seriously. I know they took that line seriously. That guy said, "The purpose is not to become stronger than your opponent; it's to become stronger than you were yesterday." Get out of here. What is that line doing in this movie? I wrote it down. I was like, what is that line doing in this movie? This is the silliest fucking movie on the planet. I just watched like a 5-minute fight scene between like the worst choreographed, like the Matrix, like fighting scene between these two dudes, just going hyper, just like high speed fighting. Just for this guy to be like, it's about being stronger than yesterday. I was like, get out of here. Isn't this like a Godzilla movie? What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying. Almost everything. Absolutely.
That's my Plinkett review.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Mr.
Everyone speaking Japanese and only one person speaking English in this whole movie.
Yeah. I think they did that too as an homage because there's so many homages to all the Godzilla movies that preceded this one, mostly to the original series, like the 50s through 70s Godzilla films. This movie is like a huge love letter to all of those. In the same way that the Godzilla King of the Monsters, that newer one, the one that you just said you hated, was as well. And casting an American actor like that was actually an homage to, I believe it was an homage to that being done in the older Godzilla films, especially the ones in the 50s and 60s. They would be, I guess, because people were like still racist back then. I mean, not that they aren't still. People are still racist. Some people are. But there was rampant racism back then, and especially like post-war, Japanese films. They felt like they had to put, a white actor in it. So like Godzilla, the original Godzilla, in its American re-release, there's actually a different cut called Godzilla King of the Monsters. And the main character is played by Raymond Burr, who was like, he was in Rear Window, I believe. But so that was kind of an homage to that, casting Don Fry, the Oscar-worthy actor.
Yeah, right. But
He
I like
said
I
he's on record saying too that his acting was horrible in that movie, and I think he said something like, "I thought I could just go into that movie and just be Don Fry, but I was wrong."
Oh
It's
god.
like, yeah, that's acting. You gotta act like someone else.
But I was wrong.
It's
Jeez.
hilarious, man.
And any scene that guy was in and the Japanese actors had to interact with him were just so awkward. It was clear that they were just kind of like looking like
We can't understand each other,
exactly.
but the director's
And we have to
telling us
pretend.
what the other is saying.
Yeah. Like it's so clear that they're just like waiting for some kind of cue that lets them know like this guy's done saying the thing.
Yeah.
And now you say the thing that responds to what he said, even though you don't know what the fuck he just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, there's so much I love about this movie though. I love the reveal at the end too, when that monster's name is Monster X, that silver
Monster
monster.
X. That's right.
I love the reveal when it transforms into Ghidorah. That I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh shit!" You know, I mean, that was the shit to me as a kid. Because as a kid, in the back of my mind, I was like, "Okay, all the monsters are from the original series are supposed to be in this one. Where the fuck's King Ghidorah?" You know, and then boom, that thing, transforms into him. I thought that was so great. I love the 3-on-1 handicap match that Godzilla takes part in with Anguirus Rodan and King Caesar at I think it's Mount Fuji or whatever that they're fighting at. But I love that fight. That's a great fight. And then of course Godzilla fights. We didn't even touch on Godzilla fighting his American counterpart.
He does. He destroys him.
That was pretty epic that they decided to include him in that. Godzilla fucks him up.
I had to like double back to that. I was like, did I know what that was? And I was like, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I've never actually seen that one, the Roland Emmerich Godzilla, the 1998.
Neither have
one. I want to keep it that way.
I think I've seen sections of it.
I've
seen sections of it. I know how it ends. I know how it ends too. I think I've seen the ending of that movie.
Yeah, they take him down with missiles. It's like that, and he doesn't look anything like Godzilla. It's actually a she, because in that movie it lays eggs. It doesn't. It's like it doesn't breathe fire, and it's not indestructible. It's like this thing isn't even Godzilla at all.
They just used the name.
Yeah.
I feel like they just used the name. They were like, oh, let's just put the name of that thing on this thing and see if it makes some money.
That was such a weird decision by Roland Emmerich, though. I understand maybe updating the look of the monster, but then to just so blatantly be like, I also want to do something different. This Godzilla is going to be like way weaker and way less cool and not blow fire. I'm like, I feel like
that's one of those like weird like American movie making things where it's just like, oh, we're gonna make this better by making it worse because we know what actually good is. It's like, okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. And apparently when they presented, because Toho, the Japanese production company that makes the Godzilla movies, they consulted like for that movie, and Roland Emmerich like presented the Godzilla model that they were going to use for the movie, and Toho actually liked it. They were like, oh, that's kind of cool and unique. And they said, like, this will actually be cool. Like, Japan can have its own Godzilla, and then America has its Godzilla, and then maybe other countries could have their own Godzilla. But I guess he didn't tell them that, hey, this Godzilla can be killed by 2 missiles. Great.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job, Mr. Emmerich.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a Spider-Man movie, and he can't shoot webs, and he can't climb walls.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's just man.
Yeah, he's just Tobey Maguire.
He's just Tobey Maguire, the movie.
Yeah, but yeah. So anyway, to cap off this review, off of memory, I had given Godzilla Final Wars a 9 out of 10.
I saw that. I was like, what is going on here?
Viewing it in my
what is going on here?
Yeah, viewing it in my adulthood, look, this movie still holds a special place in my heart. I still think it's just such a solid, like, fun, ridiculous popcorn movie. It's an over the top anime come to life. You know what I mean? I think it's wonderful, man. But I did have to take it down a notch just because of some of the horrendous acting and
Going
dialogue.
from a 10 to a 9, from a 9 to an 8.
An 8, yeah. So I give it an 8 out of 10.
I respect it, dude. I respect it.
I'll stand by it.
I give this movie, and this is me being like the nicest, man. This is me being the nicest possible, like, man, to Godzilla. I'll give this movie a 4 out of 10.
Oh man, that's not too bad. I was wincing there for a second.
No, it's not too bad, dude. I was like, I'm not gonna be so mean.
Well, how'd you like Godzilla himself in this movie too?
I loved him. I loved the design. I loved the design.
Yeah,
loved like how the initial image, and I loved just him looking back at the end of the movie into the camera and like that final shot. I thought he looked mean. I thought he looked like really like. I thought he had like a lot of personality. I loved like the presentation of the character for sure.
Yeah, that was always one of my favorite parts.
Did a great job.
Yeah, that was always one of my favorite parts of this movie too. Just the respect they gave that character, where they were like, "This is our send off of him for now." So not only are we going to bring all these older monsters back, but we're going to have him just whoop their asses and just show that he's the fucking man. You know what I mean?
He's the man. He's the man.
Yeah, and I did like the plot element. Actually, I thought it was actually kind of a unique. Kind of a cool plot element, how they were like, well, the aliens can control all the monsters with the M base, but Godzilla actually doesn't have that. Some people might see that as a plot convenience, but I saw that. Yeah, but I saw that as something that kind of made it. It was like another thing that made Godzilla kind of unique and badass, where it was like, oh, he's fucking impervious, like he's he's the fucking man,
He's a man. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nobody else like him.
Exactly. Big G.
Yeah, I loved it, dude. That was great. Great.
Well, Edward, what you got for us next week?
I have 2 reviews of this movie. The first one's from Jake Shield, and this is a 0 out of 5 review.
Asshole.
Very popular review too. And it says Godzilla Final Wars is a pastiche in the same sense that my bowel movements are a pastiche of everything I've eaten earlier in the day.
Fuck you, man.
Then, that was a really mean review, but it's really mean review, but it has so many lags, so I was like, I have to read this. And then this is a review from Jacob, and it just says the most Chad movie of all time.
I could see that. I don't know about the most. I can see one of the most.
One of the most.
Godzilla's quite the Chad in this movie. I'll say
he's quite the Chad. He is. He's got a son. His son don't do it. Kill the humans. And his son is a ninja turtle.
He always reminded me of Barney the dinosaur in this movie.
He does remind me of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's cute, man. I would love to have like a toy or like a plushie of that thing. Great. Love him.
Oh man.
For next week I got nothing. You're gonna have to wait in suspense.
Lame.
Because I had a movie that I wanted us to watch, but I've decided against it for now. I want to see if I can follow this up with something more interesting.
Follow through.
I will. You wait for a message from me, Jake.
Yep.
Telling you what the next movie is.
That's right. And you folks out there,
but
you guys.
Yeah, for everybody, you guys are gonna wait in suspense.
Yeah. And everyone out there, be safe, be cool. And and if you follow those simple rules, you guys are going to be just okay.